Hey everyone, how you doing? I wanted to talk in this little episode about the subject of cutting people off. And I know that's quite a strong term, so I think I'm gonna just stick with letting people go. And in this episode, I'm gonna talk a lot about just a recent personal experience of mine, a personal experience in the last couple of years which has seen me slowly letting go of, yeah, just my sister and how difficult that's been, yet at the same time has felt like the most loving thing for me to do. And it's, yeah, I'm going to probably reference in this um, a book that I found incredibly useful, and it's called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And it's a book from a lady called Lindsay Gibson. And if you can identify with this idea of having emotionally immature parents, then I think this could be really useful for you. Maybe the easiest thing to begin with is just to identify what is an emotionally immature parent. I think an emotionally immature parent, you can kind of classify them as the following. Maybe a parent who is not able to apologize and own their share of things. You know, a parent who immediately moves into defense whenever you offer them feedback or criticism that's difficult for them to handle. Also, like a parent who probably uses manipulation or injecting guilt as ways of um, maintaining bonds with you, maintaining control. I think the typical path of parenthood is that a parent slowly cedes control to their child. They allow their child to move out into the world, and I think a mark of good parenting is a child who freely goes out into the world and can take risks. You know, a child who feels confident in the world. If you feel confident and you trust the world, then it's almost certainly connected to the bond you had with your parents. Um, for children, the world is your parents, especially in early development. So, recognizing first off that if you've had emotionally immature parents, and this is just, this is sort of an example of parents who just like, don't respect your boundaries, who patronize you, who um, don't respect your autonomy. It can be this sort of parent who, doesn't really know how to handle their emotions, doesn't know how to regulate, can go into victim mode a lot. I know that a lot of us, especially the Irish portion of this Patreon group, we know that that is kind of a strategy, and that's a cultural strategy of dropping into victim mode as a way of avoiding really owning what we've done ourselves, and also as a way of gaining attention. So these are all kind of the hallmarks of the emotionally immature parent. And if you've grown up with an emotionally immature parent, there's a strong chance that you will develop bonds with emotionally immature people. Like this is the swings and roundabouts nature of our personal journeys, that what we experience in childhood, we replicate as adults. And we replicate it very much just in the hope, in the blind hope that by engaging in the exact same scenario, this time things will be different. It's that quote, the definition of insanity is somebody doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. So that is often the story of our lives, this doing the same thing over and over again in the hope that things will be different. And this kind of leads me to my sister and what has recently been a kind of a cutting off from my side, or a letting go. And what it comes down to for me is just the difficulty of having a real connection with her. And so this is sort of, yeah, so this is one of the kind of the prerequisites for a healthy relationship is that you are allowed to have needs. And I think as you're listening to this, it could be even useful just to kind of like think about some of the relationships you have. Do you have relationships where if you have a need, that person makes you feel bad? Are you trying to, do you have relationships where maybe you're trying to get some form of emotional sustenance from someone who doesn't have the capacity to give it? So there's this kind of element. If you've grown up with emotionally immature parents, you might spend a lot of your life trying to get blood from a stone. This was sort of, for me, this was a big part of my relationship with my sister. My sister's older than me. My sister was very aggressive with me when I was a kid. She bullied me and hit me quite a lot. And the the message that was sort of given to me by my mother and father was just, hey, walk on eggshells. My mother and father were afraid to really speak truth to my sister. So there was something going on there. Like, I think my parents were both, there was a kind of a transaction where my parents felt guilty about how they had treated my sister, and as a result, um, never disciplined her when she was, say, violent with me. So I was kind of caught up in the middle of the family lie. I'm just wondering if you're listening to this, can you feel that sort of idea too about how you might be caught up or sort of a an innocent bystander in a family lie? And quite often we have these things, where somebody did, and this is the nature of codependency, and I talk about this all the time. Like, we're moving out of this era of codependency, and so many of our family bonds are connected to this idea that, well, if I don't say this, then this person will stay. But if I say this, then all hell might break loose. And then I might have to face my own loneliness. I might have to walk the path. I might have to individuate, right? So we're coming to a place in our development where we are ready for this. And I don't want to throw any shade at like my parents, or I don't want to cast any blame, but I just want to point out that I don't think they were ready for this. I don't think they were ready for authenticity. I don't think they were ready for truth. I am. I think if you're listening to this, you also are. So what happens is we end up getting enmeshed, emotionally enmeshed. What that means is just we are caught up, we are responsible for how somebody else is. We stay attached to emotionally immature people, and it drains us. And it reinforces the idea, because when you're with an emotionally immature person, you don't get your needs met. It's impossible. And if you spend too much time in the company of an emotionally immature person, it reinforces the idea that your emotional needs are too much. How many of you have the feeling that you're too much? The only reason you have that is because you were probably exposed to people who just were not capable of meeting your needs. It doesn't mean your needs are too much, it means that your carers were deficient. So when you stop trying to get emotional intimacy from someone who can't give it to you, your life opens up, because you are no longer reinforcing this idea that your emotional needs are too much. So, um, for the last countless summers and winters, I have gone home to spend time with my sister and her kids, and I've always gone back with a sense that I cannot be, I can't express my happiness, I can't be me. When I enter the house, I sort of just have to shut down and be a presence and be in service. And what this has always reinforced in me is that my needs, that I don't have a value. When it comes to my family, I don't have a value. The consequence for this in other areas of my life has been huge, because everything is holistic, guys, right? So where if, for example, you were trying to, yeah, if you were trying to increase your wealth, for example, yet you are being sycophantic to somebody, or you're perhaps like accepting like quite an abusive scenario, it's going to have a direct impact on that because everything is holistic. It's your worth, your sense of worth for one thing is your sense of worth for all things. So if you are kind of enmeshed in an emotionally immature situation where you must play small, then this smallness affects everything. Even if you're working so hard to be big in another area. So this idea for me of like, okay, I need to sort of work on an energetic spring clean here and just take some time off from my sister and as a consequence my family because they're all together, um, has just felt like the most loving thing I could possibly do. What's kept me in the relationship for so long was that emotionally immature people use guilt and obligation to control us. It's not genuine love, it's not respect, it's just guilt and obligation. And what's interesting, and this is sort of where I would really encourage you, is to look for where there is love in your life. Now, I feel very fortunate, but I've also worked very hard at this in that I have amazing friends and community. And when, I have a dark moment, I, I, I've got like 5 non-blood brothers at least who I can call and share to about things like this. And, I have people who will really take care of me. I've got great, great friends. And I feel that love. I know what their love is. I know the love of my partner. Um, and then immediately I get dropped into the presence of my sister, for example, and I feel zero love. Even though the message coming through from my family is, oh, your sister loves you, your sister cares about you, I don't feel it. What we're moving into here, guys, is this time where if we don't feel it, it doesn't matter what others are saying to us. Your feeling, your feeling is the only gauge that matters. So, for me and for you, if you're listening to this, what I'm really speaking to is this idea of the importance of protecting your peace. For so many of us who grew up with emotionally immature parents, um, we've missed out on parenting. We didn't have that kind, mm, patient. We didn't have someone who showed us what boundaries were. We didn't have someone who showed us what emotional regulation is. We didn't have someone who showed us what healthy conflict was. So your work now is all about self-parenting and protecting your peace. Your need for peace is really important. It took me such a long time to realize that I need peace. I need calm. And okay, of course, I can't expect that all the time, but I can ask for it. And if it's not there, then I can walk away. So, emotionally mature people, they take responsibility for their own emotions. They regulate. They don't vomit their unprocessed internal shite over you. Um, and what immature people do is they make others responsible for their feelings. So my sister is quite immature, and so I feel her anger at me. I feel her kind of need for me to take responsibility for her. And because I'm quite sensitive, it's so overwhelming. Um, the difficulty has been just setting boundaries. The difficulty has been is walking away. Um, and the difficulty has been that um, I often feel a kind of an empathetic burnout in that relationship. I don't think we're supposed to ever really feel burnt out. I think if we feel burnt, I think our bodies when put in the right conditions and with the right people and with the right circumstances and with healthy boundaries and respecting our feelings, they don't burn out. So, you, on your process of self-parenting, get to practice with the energies, get to learn, okay, I'm absolutely exhausted here, I'm drained. What am I doing that I shouldn't be doing? And then that brings us to just the last part of this, where really letting go, or the more aggressive term for it, cutting someone off, um, is this act of emotional maturity. It's where you decide, I will no longer allow someone to hurt me. And you're not doing this because you're cold or unforgiving, it's just you're choosing the emotional reality. The emotional reality is that this is draining, that the connection is built on obligation and guilt. The desire of the emotionally immature person is that you take responsibility for their feelings. This person doesn't want to do the work on their own. They want you to be in a permanent state of guilt so they can blame somebody else and not look at their own shit. What we're doing, where we're going to as a people, is we're going towards maturity. And in order to get to maturity, it does involve us making some hard decisions. It does involve us experiencing being alone. I think for so many of us, for me in particular, the fear of being abandoned by my family was always so huge. And now, my dad died about less than 2 years ago, and since then, the stark reality of the relationship with my sister has just become clearer and clearer and clearer, to the point where I just cannot be involved in the fantasy of family coming first anymore. And the kindest thing I can do for myself is take a step back and go no contact for a while. So, and what that is doing for me is just creating a deeper connection with myself. I feel this, like, there's so much we often talk about, the need for loving ourselves, for self-love and so on, yet the action is what really counts. And by doing this action, and when I say action, I didn't write a sign or anything. I've just decided not to go home this summer and to take some space. By doing this, I just feel like I'm protecting myself. I feel like I'm parenting myself. I feel like I'm loving myself. And this feels beautiful. I feel much more connected. I feel like I can trust myself. And yes, there's the fear of loneliness, there's the fear of what happens, but often the thing that we're missing is the fantasy. The thing I often miss about my family is what was never there in the first place. And so that's okay. And I think there's great maturity in just only choosing love. It's what I love so much about this community, is that yes, I may be holding space and kind of uh, leading things, but I do feel that the amount of love that I get back is phenomenal. And it feels so coherent. And I'm always amazed at the depth and the things that I learn from you guys. So, yeah, follow the love and let go of the emotional immaturity. And that's all I wanted to say on that. So, hope you're well. Talk soon. Love yous. Bye bye.